of you may know that Isa, our daughter Isa, likes to bake. She actually won a baking contest the other weekend. We had a area pastor's dinner, and for that dinner, each church was supposed to bring a dessert. And so we brought Isa's dessert, which was a banana cake with mascarpone frosting and berries and flowers for decoration, and she won first prize. Now, I want you to imagine with me, if Isa had baked a cake, mixed all the ingredients together, put it in the pans, oven's all ready, she sticks it in the oven, and then she turns a timer on and goes to do something else while it's baking. Now imagine if one of her brothers or someone else in the house would come in, see the cake in the oven, and be like, oh, I need the oven. Take the cake and throw it in the sink. Just throw it away. And she would be like, what are you doing? What'd you just do to my cake? And if they said, well, that's not a cake. It's just a bunch of ingredients. It's just some batter. When does it become cake? When is it not just ingredients, and when is it a cake? That is the main question that comes up when we talk about abortion. When is it a life? Today we start our heart topic of abortion, a topic that's full of nuance, something we all bring our own personal experiences and beliefs to this topic. It's complicated. It's emotional. So we're going to start with some stats. Stats are emotional. Back in 1968, go back to 1968, there were recorded 18,000 legal abortions in the United States and an estimated 98,000 illegal abortions. So around 120 abortions in the United States in 1968. In 1973, the Supreme Court ruled that abortion was a legal right that cannot be restricted for any reason in the first 13 weeks of pregnancy. That's what's known as Roe versus Wade. That was what was decided. Roe versus Wade in 1973. In the course of 50 years of legalized abortion, approximately 63 million, deep breaths, 63 million babies have been aborted in the United States. But that number only means something if you believe those are lives. That number's only significant if you believe that those are babies. Through the years, the language has changed from baby to fetus to embryo. Some of that is to help mothers detach from what they're doing when they're having an abortion. Some of that has changed because people truly believe it's a mass of cells. So the question comes down to, when is it a life? Is the baby in the womb an extension or a part of the woman's body, and so she gets to determine what to do? Or is the baby a separate being on its own? Our belief statement, which was part of the handout that you got when you came in this morning, says, we believe in the sanctity of life and the God-given right of each person to live out his or her full life from conception to natural death. So our belief is that life begins at conception. That as soon as the sperm penetrates that egg, at that moment, an individual with their unique DNA exists. It's unique, it's distinct, there's gender. You can already tell the color of skin, the color of hair, the color of eyes, all based on the DNA, right at conception. Psalm 139, which is the most quoted verse when it comes to our biblical basis for when life begins. Psalm 139, verses 13 to 16 says, you made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. God is our creator. He values life in the womb, our innermost parts, our inner body parts, every part of us. He knew us first. He loved us and saw us from the beginning. And yet it's so much more complicated than that. And it's not that simple for everyone and every situation. Abortion gets complicated because we care about people. We care about the baby, and we care about the mom who's carrying the baby. And we know that there are some very difficult situations that bring people to a place of deciding about abortion. And we know that by looking at some more stats. When we look at 2020, the year 2020 in the U.S., there were 930,160 recorded abortions that year in the United States. Of those, approximately 50% of those abortions were by women in their 20s. 9% were teenagers. Those numbers surprised me. I expected the teenagers to be higher. So over half by women in their 20s. 51% were using contraceptives, which means they got pregnant while on birth control. And I talked to someone about this. I didn't just talk to someone. I talked to 9 different people as I was preparing for my sermon this week and next week, people I care deeply about. So not just someone I care about, someone I have a relationship with. She had an abortion when she was 16. And I asked her, was she using birth control at the time she got pregnant? And she said, well, yes, as well as a teenager can responsibly take birth control. Birth control is effective when it's taken correctly and used correctly by the woman and the man, but there's times that things happen. It's not 100%. How many times have you heard someone who's married, a married couple that will say, we weren't even trying, we were using protection, and surprise, we're pregnant. As someone who tried for a long time to have a baby, that annoyed me when people said that. I'm like, oh, happy for you. Anyway, side note. But birth control helps. It's important. Don't misunderstand me. But if we're having sex, we need to understand that we could get pregnant. The average birth control is not 100%. So yes, we use protection because 80 to 90% is better than none. But realize the risk. Pregnancy happens. 54% that year identified themselves as Christians. Pew Research says that even when a religious institution has a stated policy on abortion, like what you got today, that church members may not always agree, and many will choose abortion. We're not all going to agree on this. They give the instance, Pew Research gives the instance of the Catholic Church, which takes a pretty strong stance against abortion. And yet, when they interviewed people who were members of the Catholic Church, half of them said that abortion should be legal in all or most cases. So although our church has a stance, Christians are divided on this issue. And we need to realize that and have grace for that and listen to people's stories. Another person I talked to who does believe, she's a Christian, and believes that abortion is okay in some instances, I had her write up a statement for me. She said, right, I'm a Christian who has spent her career these people trusted me with their stories. That means a lot to me. She said, I'm a Christian who has spent her career as a women's health nurse because I've experienced the strength and the vulnerability of women, the truth of their lives, and the beauty of human life. I believe that women contemplating difficult decisions deserve to be treated with compassion, and that her own judgment and experience should be trusted. I believe that God is meeting us each where we are at, and that my job as a Christian and as a nurse is to help a woman in need, not judge her or impose restrictions, penalty, or shame on her. I trust the healthcare providers caring for women through difficult decisions, and sometimes that will include supporting them in choosing abortion. We need to know that we are all bringing our own experiences to this. We're all bringing our own beliefs and the things that we have lived through in life, the things that we've seen. So we need to know each other's stories. We need to be willing to listen to one another, to ask questions, to hear where we're coming from. In 2017, the Guttmacher Institute estimated that almost 1 in 4 women will have an abortion by the time they're 45. Which means we are talking about people who have lived this. And if half of those abortions are Christians, we're talking about each other. We're most likely talking about people here today. And I don't just mean women, I mean the men who were alongside them. So I want us to realize it's personal. That we are looking at something through the lens of a holy God and a compassionate God. In 2020, of the women who had abortions, 75% were from low-income situations. And we often make a note, or there's an argument for abortion, that we want to ease the stress and financial hardship of someone. Mother Teresa gives us something to think about in regards of parenting and poverty. She says it's a poverty to believe that a child must die so you can live as you wish. And so what is the poverty? Is it not birthing a child? Or not having enough money? And believe me, kids are expensive. You start out with a baby and you're buying diapers and you think, oh my goodness, this child costs so much money. And then later when they're about 12 or 13 and you find out that it costs more to feed and clothe them than yourself, then if they decide to go to college, kids are expensive. There is a financial piece to that. What is the poverty? Mother Teresa asks. When is it a life that matters? 86% of the women who had abortions were unmarried. So according to the stats, if you are in the low-income bracket, if you are unmarried, and you're a woman in your 20s who becomes pregnant, you are more likely to have an abortion. Unmarried and pregnant is not a new thing for us to talk about. Babies out of wedlock is not new. We are people with hormones. We're people who desire to be loved and accepted, and those feelings can be met in a sexual relationship, and so this happens. And women find themselves pregnant, and many of them with money concerns, especially if they don't have the emotional support or financial support of a spouse. So I want you to think of the desperation that some people find themselves in. What do I do? How in the world am I going to raise this child? How do I do this financially? What if there's no family support? The desperation of that situation. And I share the percentages for us to realize the kinds of circumstances that bring women to a tough choice of what do I do? Many of us have found ourselves in other desperate situations, those situations where you just don't know how to handle it. You're just not sure what to do, when nothing seems like the right answer, when no matter what you choose, there will be hardship. And so people are left with the question, what do I do? When is it really a life? Job 31:15 says, "For God created both me and my servants. He created us both in the womb." Job 12:10 says, "For the life of every living thing is in his hand, and the breath of every human being. He gives life, and that life begins in the womb at conception." The leading argument in favor of abortion is the matter of choice. That women know their bodies best, that their doctors know their medical situation best, and they should be able to do whatever they choose with their body. So here's a few things to think about when we consider choice and the term pro-choice, because we are all pro-choice. We all want choices. I want a choice in religion, a choice of who I marry, a choice of what job I have, a choice of what medical procedures are done on my body, a choice of what medications I take. Those are choices we all believe we are entitled to. When it comes to being a Christian and the matter of choice, we remember our bodies are a temple of the Holy Spirit. We house the Holy Spirit within us. And so my rights and my choices are left before the Lord, who I call Master and Savior. He's the one that I look to when it comes to what choices I make. Salvation is a matter of recognizing Jesus is my Savior. He's the one who forgives me. He's the one who saves me from my sin. But also accepting him as Master and Lord, which means he's the one I follow after. He's the one who rules my choices. He's the one who loves me and knows me so deeply and seeks what is best for me. And so my choices are up to him. Choice is often tied into women's rights. So, someone who isn't in favor of women having the choice to have an abortion comes across as not being in favor of women's rights. And I find something really interesting, because the very first, earliest women's rights activists, like Susan B. Anthony, called aborting an unborn child murder. It was not seen as a women's rights movement issue. And it's my understanding it wasn't a political issue or a women's rights issue until it was used in the election in 1976 for the Republican Party to gain votes. The other aspect of choice has to do with how I choose my body affects those around me. So I can choose to use my hands in any way that I want to, unless it means I'm beating you up or strangling you. Because at that moment, my choice affects your right to live. And so when we talk about choice when it comes to a pregnant woman, the matter of choice comes back to, are you affecting another life? Is what's growing inside of me another life, or is it a life separate from my own? Is it part of my own body? Or when does it become a separate life? Aside from choice, another argument is the matter of rape or incest. The number of abortions that are attributed to those really difficult cases, like rape and incest, is estimated about 1 to 1.5% of abortions. But those numbers are questionable because the process of proving rape or incest is tedious, it's traumatic, and it's underreported. But it's a piece of it. In the book Victims and Victors, they questioned about 200 women, and these were women who had experienced pregnancy as a result of rape or incest. Almost all of those women that chose abortion regretted that they had done that. And most of them said they would discourage anyone else from doing so in the same situation. Those women who became pregnant as a result of rape and incest and chose not to have an abortion, chose to carry their babies, none of them regretted that decision. Those babies are beloved by God. God's creation, no matter the circumstance of how they were conceived. And yet I recognize the desperation of those situations. Not being able to see any other way out of a traumatic circumstance. And so we remember, as we're talking about this, we're talking about people. Another matter is that of abuse. Women who don't want to bring a child into an abusive home, a circumstance that they don't know how to leave or haven't been able to leave. Other matters include unwanted children or children with medical issues. And then the question comes up, is an act of mercy to abort a child destined for a life of medical issues and financial burden. Andrea and Chadi, you may know their story with Bennett. They had to make that decision of what to do when Andrea was pregnant with Bennett. And they chose to have Bennett and love on him during his short life. Javier and Blanca also lived out that decision. Blanca actually got pregnant first when she was in high school. She and Javier had that baby girl, Ashley. And then, a few years later, Blanca was pregnant with Levi. And she went into early term labor. Her placenta broke, which jeopardized Levi's life and complications of her own. And so I've asked them to come and share their experience. When I talked to Blanca, you guys can come on up, and Levi. When I talked to Blanca, she shared with me, first of all, her story of being pregnant in high school at 15 or 16. And then also the story of Levi. And she said, Levi would love to tell the story of how he's a miracle. So, let me grab a microphone. So, Javier and Blanca, what did the doctors say about your pregnancy and how that would affect Levi?
So I was 22 weeks pregnant, and I went to the clinic, and they told me, you know, you're at very risk of your baby being born anytime. So you need to be on bed rest right away. And not only that, you have the risk of getting an infection, and your life being at risk of dying, and your son can be born anytime, and he's probably not going to make it at 22 weeks. So they sent me up to Oregon OHSU, Doran Becker, to see a specialist, a neonatal doctor, and he sat with us and told us, okay, so here it is. You're still not at 24 or 25 weeks, and so you can still you can choose to end your pregnancy, they told me. So I'm going to give you 2 or 3 weeks to decide whether you want to continue with your pregnancy, because you still have the right to end it. Past that time frame of 24 or 25 weeks, even if your baby is at his health, it's really bad, even if it's going to affect them for life, you cannot make that choice on your own. The medical team has to review it and make an ethical decision on that. So when they told us that, my husband and I went home, and it was hard. It was hard because a year and a half prior to this, we had buried a child, a 9-month-old daughter. So we had to let her go. And then this happening again, where we could have a chance of losing another child, it was hard. But I thank God for my mother-in-law, a Christian that knew the word, and she was a fervent prayer warrior. She was there with me and my husband and kept encouraging us. And then we had been coming to church for quite a few years too. And so we had read the Bible, and we read Psalms 139, and we knew that God created my son in my womb, and he was wonderfully made, and God knew him. And so that, and then knowing the commandments where it says you shall not kill, so I knew it was a sin for me to choose death or choose to end my pregnancy. But at the same time, it was hard because I told God, I don't want my child to come and have so many medical issues, because the doctor told us, since my water broke, the amniotic fluid wasn't going through his mouth and through his body, and that helps the baby to develop and mature his lungs, his brain, and all that. So they said he's probably not gonna be okay. So knowing that, being physical, having a physical disability, it's hard on the person itself, or the person, and then on the family too. So I was like, Lord, help me. What do I do? What do I do? And my husband was hard, it was hard on him too, because he had to choose, whether to continue or not, knowing that my life was at risk. And we had Ashley and Junior alive. He needed they needed a mom too. So, but just my mother-in-law was there with us, like, encouraging us. We had the word. We started listening to testimonies, on the radio, and then had people praying. I know the church was also praying for us, like the prayer, the prayer team was praying for us. So we just had so many churches. My mother at that time was attending another church in Salem, so their church was praying for us. We just had so many people praying for us, and so that helped us to choose to go with our pregnancy. We said, Lord, let your will be done. If my baby's not going to be okay, there's a reason. It's going to be in your hands, but I will not choose to end his life. It is not my decision. I will not end my pregnancy. If it's your will for him to die during the pregnancy, then it's you choose that, not me. I'm not going to do that. And so we decided to go on, and so I was admitted into the hospital, I was, for 3 weeks, I was in bed rest on observation at the hospital, gained a lot of water because I couldn't walk. I was literally on bed rest the 3 weeks. And so we chose to continue with the pregnancy, and then Levi was born at 28 weeks on his own. He was ready to come out. But the funny thing, and I remember being at the hospital, I was like tired. I was like, this is hard, because I was away from home. My 2 little kids were at home with my mother-in-law. My husband would have to come, every 3 days, because he couldn't afford to drive up every day to see me up in Portland. So it was hard. I remember praying, Lord, I remember saying, I can't wait for this baby to be born. But then I'm like, no, not yet. He's not ready. He's not ready to be born. He's not ready to be born. I want him to stay longer in my belly. So it was mixed emotions. I was tired in this journey, but at the same time, no, I want him to make it all the way to 38 weeks. I think that was the goal, 38 weeks. But he was ready at 28 weeks. So,
and here he is,
yes.
Levi. Levi, is there anything you want to tell people about the decision your parents made?
I'm just grateful for what they did, the decision that they did. I'm grateful for everything that they've done in my life.
Thank you. Thanks, you guys. Thank you for sharing your story. And when Blanca and I sat and talked, she shared all these things, and then she kept circling back and saying, it was really hard. It was really hard. It's beautiful now because we see Levi, but it was really hard. What do we believe about God being the giver and taker of life, and that he gets to decide? Job 33:4 says, for the Spirit of God has made me, and the breath of the Almighty gives me life. God gets to decide when our life begins and when our life ends. And we keep coming back to that question of when is it a life? There's a lot of suggestions as to when life begins. Is it implantation? Is it detectable heartbeat? Is it when you can see brain waves? Is it when you feel the baby move? Is it viability and the baby's able to live outside the womb? Is it when a baby can feel pain? There's no agreement. And so the debate continues about when is it a life. There's a quote from a man named Gregory Corkle. He says, if the unborn is not a human person, then no justification is necessary. But if the unborn is a human person, then no justification for abortion is adequate. So is the fact that it's even a debate tell us something about whether or not it's a life? Because if it's not, we wouldn't even be debating it. There's a doctor named Dr. Peppard who says, when I treat a woman who's pregnant, I often state to them that I now have 2 patients to worry about, not just one. If I knowingly recommend using medication that would potentially cause harm to the second patient, meaning the baby, I would be guilty of malpractice and would have performed a very unethical act. However, he says, if I recommend that she kill the second patient and have an abortion, I am a great defender of women's rights. What a strange world we live in, he says. In 2017, the latest stats that I could find for this, there were more abortions in Oregon per day than deaths from cancer. What a strange world we live in. In 2000, the House of Representatives voted 417 to 0 that if a woman is sentenced to death while she's pregnant, the law says that the unborn child deserves protection regardless of what the woman has done. So she cannot be put to death until after delivering the baby. So under the law, the most protected unborn child in the United States is the one whose mother is on death row. What a strange world we live in. Think about the posters that you see if you go into a place that sells alcohol. It's required by law to post a sign that says pregnancy and alcohol don't mix. There's even a picture of a woman with a baby inside as a reminder to protect the development of a baby that's growing. What a strange world we live in. When a woman gets pregnant, she says, I'm going to have a baby because there's a human being growing inside of her, a genetically unique individual, alive and growing. In Judges 13, verses 3 to 5, it says, the angel of the Lord appeared to Manoah's wife and said, even though you have been unable to have children, you will soon become pregnant and give birth to a son. So be careful. You must not drink wine or any other alcoholic drink or eat any forbidden food. You will become pregnant and give birth to a son, and his hair must never be cut, for he will be dedicated to God as a Nazirite from birth. He will begin to rescue Israel from the Philistines. That baby was Samson. And Samson's mom had to be careful how to live, make sure she was living according to Nazirite law while she was pregnant, because it was a life, a person created by God with a purpose that started in the womb at conception. We look in Luke 1 at Jesus' mother. Luke 1, verse 38, Gabriel appeared to her, to Mary, and said, greetings, favored woman, the Lord is with you. Confused and disturbed, Mary tried to think what the angel could mean. Don't be afraid, Mary, the angel told her, for you have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you will name him Jesus. At what point did Mary's baby become the Son of God? Was it when he was born? Or when he was conceived? When did he become Jesus? When did Issa's cake become a cake? She had a purpose for it when she put all those ingredients in there, when she put it in the oven. She knew what kind of cake it would be. She knew how she would decorate it. She knew who was going to eat it. When is it a life? Jeremiah 1:5. God said to Jeremiah, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you as my prophet to the nations. God had a plan for Jeremiah before he was born. A plan for Jesus, a plan for Samson, a plan for each one of you. God knew you in the womb. He knew you and had a plan for you. Worship team, would you come forward? We're making up for all the weeks we've gone long. Not really. We're not done yet. When we talk about this, we're talking about valuing unborn babies, valuing life, how much value God puts on life, the life of babies, the life of parents, the life of the mother carrying the baby. And it should also remind us of our value. The value that you had from the moment you were conceived. The moment that it was known what you would look like, what color your hair would be, what gender you would be, the value of our lives. He made all the delicate inner parts of your body and knit you together in your mother's womb. He watched you as you were being formed in utter seclusion, as you were woven together in the dark of the womb. He saw you before you were born. Every day of your life was recorded in his book. Every moment laid out before a single day had passed. We're going to talk more about this next week, part 2. Don't miss it. I don't know what story you bring to this. I know there's stories, and I know I didn't hear all of them. I had 56 pages of notes. And then I stopped asking people to tell me their stories. I couldn't process it all. Your story, God knows your story. He knew it before you were born. And he welcomes you. He has a purpose for every one of you. A value. I don't know where you're at in life. Put this subject aside. He sees you. He knows you. He loves you from the very beginning. He has purpose for you. There is value in your life. Whether you're at the beginning of your life or the end of your life, no matter where you're at, he has value and purpose for you. He gifted you. You are his workmanship, his masterpiece. Every single one of you, a beautiful work of art. Flaws and all.